Bhagwan Shri Yogi Ramsuratkumar ki Jai. Sarvam Yogi Ramsuratkumar Pranamastu. This today's twilight evening, what we call Sandhyakar. We have had a cleansing bath. It's a holy bath, a bath in Nama Sankirtan. It cleanses our body, mind, intellect, and the ego. But it's important that we sit together and sing the name. Every Nama Sankirtan session is a definite holy bath, what the Christians call baptism. A huge divine Shakti rises out of it to cleanse both the physical and the mental, the intellectual and the spiritual levels of the being. But then, when you go on putting the money in the bank, if it's a small amount, say 100 rupees, it takes quite a bit of time to accumulate to a conspicuous amount. Like that, the Nama Sankirtan also, as we go on adding more and more and more, in the initial stages, it may not show up as something considerable. But after some time, you will know. You will be stunned to know how much you have done. So after this holy bath, in the Nama Sankirtan, we shall now take a bath in the ocean of His Leela, the ocean of His grace. The devotees of Bhagwan, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, many of us know very well Shri Venkataramani Guruji of Arunachaleshwara. He reads the palm leaves as ordained by Shikaka Bhujanda Maharishi. Shikaka Bhujanda Maharishi told him that he would go into him, he would inspire him to do the reading the way it should be read. His son, Sri Shankarji, several years back, was just finished his college, not very serious about any profession, the least of all his father's. He had his own ideas about what to do. When he visited Bhagwan, Bhagwan asked him about his father's reading the palm leaves. And what about you? You are the son? He said, Swami, I don't want to do that. My father is doing with such divinity and sincerity, and still there are people who criticize him. Then what's the point? I don't want to, I'm not interested. Then Bhagwan said, my father tells me that in this whole world there is no one else to do this palm reading except you. Do not think that you do not know anything about it. All that will come. But you have to do it. You well deserve it. My father says so. He sent him for a parikrama round the mountain Arunachala. Then after he came back again, Bhagwan said that it was his lot to do the Palmyra leaves reading. He said, as soon as you go back home, you go round your parents, prostrate before them, and tell them that I have said so. Shri Shankarji did that. And then they waited for 2 or 3 days from some indication from Sri Kakabhujanda Maharishi, who lived several thousand years before, a great sage, steeped in Ramayana. He had lived in the times of Ramayana. These Palmyra leaves, they tell you the great, great sages of those times, whatever they came to know about people, the forecasts of lives of people as predicted by them. And it takes a special eye to see and read them out. It's not easy for everyone. They should be well trained physically, mentally, spiritually for being able to read out the Palmyra leaves, where the forecasts of people have been inscribed by the great Rishis of the old. So waited 2 or 3 days, and after that, Shikaka Bhujanda Maharishi said, before anything, you need the grace of Lord Ganapati. So you worship him. So promptly, Sri Shankarji came back, went in search of Bhagwan, who was found there in the temple. And Bhagwan was seated there in front of this there is a Muruga shrine, Kambatti Elena. So when he went there, some lady had brought a packet of dates. And there were so many flies sitting over that. Wouldn't leave. But she offered it to him. That was her offering. And then Bhagwan just looked at Shankarji, asked him to come near, and offered these dates. He took one or two. Even while taking, he thought they were flies-ridden. One would not take such things from the roadside. This poor lady, that's all the money she had, and she had bought it. And Bhagwan accepted it. Now Bhagwan looked at him, smiled. He saw only one or two being taken by Shankarji. And then he said, you have to finish the whole lot. You have to finish the entire packet. So what more can Shankarji say once the command had come? And after that, Bhagavan took him to Sannidhi Street House. Now once before, the first time when he had come and Bhagavan talked about reading out the Palmyra leaves, Shankarji said that he was not interested and that people would criticize. Then Bhagavan said to him, you see, when Sri Rama came, he was criticized. When Sri Krishna walked the earth, he was criticized. They criticized Mahatma Gandhi, who lived in truth. Now, when people are praising you, do not think that they are praising you. When people are criticizing you, do not think they are criticizing you. You just do your duty. Just as Krishna said to Arjuna, you do your duty, do not bother about the results. This was the advice given by Bhagwan to Sri Shankarji. This is the advice for all of us. All of us have got our duties to do. Now Shankarji had come again, and Bhagwan took him to Sannidhi Street House, and after he heard about all that was given by Shikakabhujana Maharishi, in fact, in the temple, he took the hand of Sri Shankarji and went to one or two places where he saw a crow near, in two places, and he said, oh, Shikakabhujana Maharishi is here. And then he took him to Sannidhi Street House. Bhagwan gave him the Moola Mantra and taught him how to do japa and blessed him nicely, saying that he would find fulfillment in that. The fulfillment will come out of this japa. It's Bhagwan who initiated him into this Palmyra reading. And so he started to do the japa, just as Bhagwan did. He's still doing it. And then the night, now, instead of Kakabhujana Maharishi, Shri Agastya Maharishi, it is he who came into him, who comes into him every night, even now, every day, every night. Shri Agastya Maharishi flows through him. Shri Shankarji doesn't even read from the Palmyra leaves. The words flow. they cascade from his lips in the night. So these are all some of the dimensions of Bhagwan's inspiration, that how he has touched the lives of people at different dimensions, brought out their best. Now we shall shift the scene to Sannidhi Street again. Shri Ganesh Anna of Ramana Ashram had taken Shri Ilayaraja to Sannidhi Street House. They were seated in the veranda, and as soon as people came to know that the music director, the popular music director of Tamil Nadu had come, the place was flooded with people. There was a lot of jostling and people competing with each other to come forward to have a glimpse of their matinee idol. Bhagwan kept smiling, seeing all that was going on outside, and then he instructed Shri Ilayaraja to go give darshan to those people. Naturally, Shri Ilayaraja was feeling shy. He was feeling very embarrassed. He did not want to go and give darshan, as Bhagwan put it. Then Bhagwan started to make fun of him. He said, "You are Raja, you are the king. I am a beggar. Now people are all waiting there for the darshan of the king. Please go, give darshan to them." So Ilayaraja had no other go but get up, go to the door, and he began to manage those people in his own way. Now, after he finished his job, he came back promptly and sat there opposite to Bhagwan. Now there was a lady who was standing there outside with the crowd. She was crying. And Bhagwan saw her. Bhagwan knew her. It's not that Bhagwan sees people and knows. Bhagwan simply knows. He doesn't have to see. He said, "Ganesha, Nagama has come from the ashram." She was the sweeper of the ashram. So Bhagwan, at the time Shri Ganesh Anna was running the ashram. He was doing administration. "Ganesha, go, ask that Nagama to come inside." So the president of the ashram was sent to call the sweeper of the ashram. And Nagama was very hesitant, very shy. She was thinking all those big ayahs, VIP ayahs are there. How can I go in? But then Ganesh Anna took her hand and brought her inside. And Bhagwan made Nagama sit next to Shri Ilayaraja. Of course, as soon as she came in, she was crying, and Bhagwan asked her what she wanted. And she said, "There are so many problems in the house, so much suffering." And Bhagwan declared, "All your sufferings will go. My father blesses you. Now you can go sit next to him." He pointed a seat next to Ilayaraja. So on the one side was Ilayaraja, on the other side was the president of the ashram, and in the middle was the sweeper of the ashram. Now the scene strangely reminded Shri Ganesh Anna of something that he had heard from Balram Reddy in the days of Shri Ramana Maharishi. I believe once Balram Reddy was talking about Ramayana, and in the court of the King Rama, the kings and the common people were together. There was no difference at all. That was Ramaraja. So they were all seated equally, and there was no difference. So when he heard it, when Balram Reddy was describing it, and Shri Ganesh Anna was listening to him, and both of them entered the meditation hall of Ramanashram where Shri Ramana Bhagavan was seated already. So they encountered, as soon as they entered, they encountered a scene in front of them. Some kings from some stans. There were many states and kings. It was British Raj in those days. So 2 or 3 kings had come to have the darshan of Ramana Bhagavan, and they were seated there. And next to a king was seated the sweeper, the then sweeper of the ashram. And as soon as Shri Ganesh Anna saw this, he was wondering, what a coincidence. Just now Balram Reddy was saying that Lord Rama, the court of Lord Rama, had seen kings and the commoners together. And here he saw something very similar happening in front of Ramana Bhagavan. And now, after several years, when he was seated there with Nagama, the then sweeper of Ramanashram, seated next to him, next to Shri Ilayaraja, Bhagavan had called him king. I am a beggar, you are the king. And now Nagama was seated next to the king. On this side, Shri Ganesh Anna was seated. And he knew that it was all the one divinity. Wherever the true divinity lives, the same scene will be repeated. What a beautiful story. He also had said that sometimes, in those days, the Dakshinamurthy Temple, today it's been renovated and there are pujas every day and it's crowded. But in those days, even when I visited in the late 80s, it was still dilapidated. Even the murti was broken and there was darkness inside in the evening. After the evening, it's sometimes even the thieves would come and stay there, and mostly beggars. I believe in those days, Yogi used to be seated there in the Dakshinamurthy Temple. And Ganeshan's mother would be returning from Ramanashram, and she would be seeing Bhagavan seated there in the Dakshinamurthy Temple, the dilapidated Dakshinamurthy Temple, and she would feel such devotion for him. She would want to go near him, but then she was hesitant, she was shy, so she would go away straight to her place, and then she would send her daughter, Shri Ganeshan's sister, Lakshmi, to Swami, to Yogi Ramsuratkumar Bhagavan, requesting him to come home and take food. And Lakshmi would promptly take Swami with her, and then Ganeshan's mother would receive him with due respect, take him inside and spread a banana leaf and serve the food of the day. Bhagavan had taken food. So in those days, Ganeshan says, in those days it was very rare that Bhagavan had a meal at all. These stories give us a glimpse of Bhagavan's life. He also described two incidents. There was one Damodaran, who was skin and bones, who had Parkinson's disease. So he would be trembling, his hands would be trembling. But whenever he came, Bhagavan would get up, go inside, and bring an apple. He never failed to bring an apple and then drop it into his hands as prasad. After watching it quite a few times, Ganesh Anna asked Bhagavan, "Why, Swami, you are taking the trouble every time you bring an apple from inside? What is so special about him?" "Oh, Ganesha, in those days when this beggar was wandering in the streets, his stall, he was running a tea stall, it was behind the Pegopuram. He would give me tea." Shri Ganeshan understood that probably he was giving tea every day to Bhagwan. That Bhagwan was so grateful that every time he came, he honored him with an apple. Bhagwan read his mind and said, "No, Ganesha, he had given me tea 3 times in all those years." So that is our Bhagwan, Yogi Ramsuratkumar. And he also described another incident when he and Anuradha Ma were there. Bhagwan was seated with them in the temple. A lady, an old lady, came with a vessel. She came with a vessel closed with the lid, and then she came and cried to Bhagwan. And of course, she seemed very familiar. Bhagwan was familiar to her also. And then she said, "Swami, there's so much suffering at home. My husband is beating me all the time. I'm unable to bear it anymore." Then Bhagwan assured her that her sufferings would soon come to an end. And then she said, "Swami, I brought some food for you, specially for you." Bhagwan was all eagerness. He said, "Is it? Okay, this beggar will have it." And then she opened the tiffin box. There was such terrible smell, which Ganeshan and Anuradha could not bear. But then Bhagwan, they looked at Bhagwan, and Bhagwan was still there with both hands raised, he cupped his hand, and then he took the gruel that she had brought with such bad smell, he drank it up with such love. And then after she left, Bhagwan said that sometimes she would bring this food for him when he did not get anything at all. For Bhagwan, if he got food, sumptuous food to eat, it was Father's grace. If he did not get anything at all to eat for 3 days, 4 days, by Father's grace, Devaki, this beggar did not get anything to eat. This is the way he described it to me. Then I asked him how he survived his body. He said, after 3 days, sometimes Father would manage to give a cup of tea, so this beggar could survive. All Father's grace, Devaki. So you see, if he got something, it was Father's grace. If he didn't get anything at all, it was still Father's grace. For him, everything was only Father's grace. This reminded Ganesh Anna another scene that in Ramana Ashram, it was some Deepavali function day, and people had brought all kinds of sweets and snacks. there was going to be a feast. So people were all waiting for lunch for Ramana Bhagavan to come and join them. But Ramana Bhagavan, right from morning time, he was just looking towards a doorway, as though he was awaiting somebody. And he was. Around the lunchtime, before he went to the kitchen, dining hall, this man came in. He looked like a villager, and he had brought a vessel with him, carrying something. The same scene repeated. He said, "Swami, I brought something, I brought meal for you." It was once again some gruel. And Ramana Maharshi was waiting for it from morning. So as soon as he came, Ramana Maharshi stretched his hands for that. And then those people around, they were waiting for him to come to the dining hall. There was a feast waiting for all of them. So they gently reminded that the lunch was waiting. Ramana Maharshi said, "I'm having my lunch here. You people can go in and have your feast. This is my lunch." That man had walked all the way from the village carrying this food just for Ramana Maharshi. And Ramana Maharshi knew he was coming and he was waiting. So once again, to Shri Ganesh Anna, that the divinity, Ramana Maharshi used to say, there is only jnana, there are no jnanis. Meaning, the supreme power, the supreme God is only one. And the containers, the content is the one, same, but the containers, they don't exist in the eyes of Jnani. So one is Ramana Maharshi, the other one is Yogi Ramsuratkumar, yes, but they behaved the very same way. They dealt with people in the very same way. Why? The same divinity, the Purnatva, the same. Now that Bhagwan is here right in front of us with his hand raised in benediction. We shall appeal to his boundless compassion, the compassion that he showed to Damodaran, to that lady with the gruel. Bhagwan, we are in dire need of